Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome to another Pride and Grit Spouse Spotlight. Today I get to double up. And so I have both Abi and Dana here today. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves in just a second. But we are certainly happy to have them join us from Legacy and talk a little bit about what Legacy Magazine is doing, but also talk a little bit about their paths as military spouses and what that has looked like for them. So I will let both of you introduce yourselves. Abi, if you want to take it first and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having us. So I'm Abi Ray. I am the founder of Legacy Magazine, and I've been a military spouse now for about 10 years. And I was in the midst of studying marriage and family therapy when my husband and I got married. So, as many of you already know, you travel a lot with the military. And so, with every move, I had to re-study for a licensure exam. So, about 3 moves in 3 states, I decided to pursue another route, and that was Legacy Magazine. So, it just kind of combines uh, been able to reintegrate counseling into my life, which has been great.
Awesome. Thank you, Abi. Dana, you want to give us your highlight reel?
Sure. So I'm Dana Vandre. Originally, I am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we we never really grew up around any military lifestyle. And so meeting my husband, he had joined active duty military, and I kind of just followed him. And that was about 11 years ago. And so yeah, so the whole process was me becoming a stay-at-home mom and kind of switching my life over from being a working person to a stay-at-home mom, and then eventually going back to school, getting my degree in English and human services, and now I'm going back for my master's in clinical mental health. So Abi and I have that in common.
Right.
But yeah, so it has been kind of this interesting journey where you kind of change different parts, and it leads you down this really cool path, and you meet some great people along the way.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. And Abby, I've talked to, I think, at least two, maybe three other spouses so far who are in a similar boat, who, were clinical social workers or some similar path, and struggled with the licensure piece and struggled with kind of picking up and reestablishing that everywhere they go. So I think a lot of folks can kind of understand the pain of that and the difficulty of that, and being able to channel those talents into something else is certainly to benefit of all of us who love Legacy and have been reading it from the beginning. So one of the things I like to always mention or talk about is, as we look at the spouse spotlights, really the intent of this is to talk about what people are doing and what their paths have looked like, to try to give other people some inspiration, give them some ideas, give them some thoughts around what other people's hardships may look like and how they sort of persevere through those. So in that vein, I'm interested in, from both of you, kind of what you would consider the hardest thing for you about military life, and then the thing you kind of treasure the most, even among some of those hardships. So Abby, you want to start with that one?
Absolutely. So I spent my first few years dreading or dwelling on all the ways that life as a military spouse could hinder my passions and professions. But I would say over the last 5 to 6 years, it almost has been a paradigm shift, and it feels almost invigorating. I feel like there's been such an energy within the military spouse and veteran owned business community, to where it almost feels energizing now, right? So where this community used to hinder maybe establishing community, with the simple shift of the mindset and kind of learning to be adaptable and learning to be innovative, and then also just pulling from the energy of those around me, right? The inspiration of what other women are doing within this community. It's brought me my home team. So while it certainly comes with its set of challenges, surrounding myself with like-minded individuals has helped me navigate those challenges.
Yep, absolutely. I imagine Dana's one of those.
Absolutely, she is.
So Dana, what would your two things be?
One of the biggest challenges I think for me is because I wasn't really familiar with the military community. I grew up really close with my family, and then moving away and just kind of
Hmm.
not being around them was really hard. And it kind of, just like Abby said, for a while, you feel like these are things that are going to hinder your life and kind of take away from what makes you you. Um, but then it just adds to that, to those, blessings on the other side of, it really challenges you to a point where you really never thought you'd be challenged before. I don't think that I would have been to this point of self-awareness had I not been able to go through the military journey, and come out the other side with a little bit, going through the grit and going through all the craziness, to come out on the other side and meet these people, and really see like the creative communities that spring out of sometimes like the sadness or the
Hmm.
craziness that ensues.
Do you think this new path you're on, do you think that would have, like, is that something that now that you're headed down that road, you're like, oh yeah, this completely fits me? Or do you think that that's sort of been born out of these experiences you've had as a military spouse?
I think it's both for sure. I think it fits me, but I think that it's been a very direct, like it fits me, but also like kind of like a sponge absorbing everything else that's around me.
Yep, no, absolutely. Awesome. I love those. Thank you. I always there's so much similarity, and I think that's one of the things I've loved about each of these. I think this is I don't even the 20th, or I don't know how many we've done now, but there's so many things that are consistent. We love the community. We hate moving. We have a hard time with our careers. Those are some of the things that are consistent. But the community comes back again and again as the thing that people really treasure, and the ability to kind of grow in a way that maybe they wouldn't have before. So I appreciate that from both of you. So tell us a little bit about what you're up to with Legacy. So Abby, if you want to kind of start about I guess, the original vision with Legacy, and kind of what was the need you really wanted to see filled with that in the beginning?
It was in 2015 when the idea, so the light bulb moment happened, and I
Right.
was working alongside a few veteran and spouse owned businesses. So I had done, in between my counseling and Legacy, I did some marketing and photography for various local businesses, most of them primarily military focused. Our Riveter was one, and then a few other smaller local ones that are here in our Fort Bragg area.
Mm-hmm.
And it was while working alongside those organizations that I felt like there was a great opportunity to kind of shine a light on those unique paths that are available to our military community. So I feel like in mainstream media, there is a very traditional message sent around military spouses, the military community. But what I was seeing, as I was in the trenches with these spouses, was a very different story, right? So stories of resilience, celebration, and growth. So that just felt so energizing, and we saw. So it was in 2016 that I kind of drummed up some courage to share it with three of my dear friends, and those are Katie Christie, Kimberly Basco, and Leslie Bryans. So they are three women, all military spouses, that helped bring the original vision to life. And then along the way, we've been able to connect with so many amazing other women, Dana being one of them. And then she brought the idea of Legacy Kids to the table. And when she shared her heart on it, it just brought so much excitement. And I knew it was an endeavor worth joining her on.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and this, this being April and month of the military child, this was definitely a conversation I wanted to have this month to talk about this new venture that you guys are in with Legacy Kids. So Dana, we'll get to that here in just a second. But I'm curious, Abby, as you look at the stories that you've been able to tell in Legacy for the time that you guys have been out, do you find that the folks that are really able to kind of put that positive foot forward, is there a time and service to that? Is there an age to that? Do you find that there's anything consistent or not, I guess, in those stories that are being told?
So my initial coming into this, my initial thoughts were, you kind of were at this certain age, right, where you've met maturity or you've lived through this life of service for a certain time. But what I'm learning, it's more about, rather than the person's age or experience, it's been more about their mindset. So they have a positive mindset. If they're looking for that silver lining, or if they're looking for that golden moment, they're more likely to see that in all areas of their life. So it's really been about that mindset. So that's one thing that we've asked our readers or our contributors to do, is kind of like focus in on that, kind of identify what those characteristics were, and then how do you share that with others. So it's in a specific stage, but more a specific mindset, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I wonder too if it's a little bit of what you said before in terms of like who you surround yourself with, right? Like that becomes so important, I think, to this journey, is the voices not only in your head, right, but the voices in your circle make such a difference in how you kind of persevere through the things that may be difficult, and be able to see them in a better way.
Absolutely. I would say community and colleagues and cohorts are vital. And I would say it's almost contagious, right? And that's kind of the hope with sharing these stories.
Right.
It's caught on by the greater community.
Yep. And people start to see like, oh yeah, that could be me too. Maybe I will, walk that path. Awesome. Absolutely. I love that. So Daena, tell us about the vision for Legacy Kids, and kind of where that came from, and what was kind of the same question, right? What was the void, if you will, that you were hoping to fill with that effort?
Sure. So just, kind of piggybacking off of what Abby said, Legacy Magazine kind of, it created this, this like beautiful allure to it. You have all these people and these spouses really delivering their heart and a lot, and kind of creating this community of what they believe and how they feel and how they, persevere. And I thought to myself, why couldn't children create that same community? And I think that a lot of times, like just as we all have to get moved around and we can explore these creative outlets with writing and art, sometimes our kids are getting moved around and they don't have those outlets to explore as much. And so just knowing how well Legacy Magazine has introduced just this creative mindset and this idea of building community through that, I thought it would be a really great opportunity to, ask Abby if she would like to come along and do a Legacy Kids magazine as well. And, allow children to experience that form of community and kinship within, children of their own age.
Right. And so is there an age, an ideal age, or what's the span that you're really focusing on for the content?
I think it's just all children that want to participate. And I think that when you look at it from the standpoint of the older kids really teaching the younger kids, and sometimes the younger kids and the older kids, they can kind of feed off of each other.
Right.
And we, and there's some specific spots where we want that to happen within the magazine, where the older kids can help facilitate, holding the hand and saying these feelings are normal, and, showing the younger kids exactly what military life is, and that's okay. It's these things are okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have a friend of mine who has a small child who they're program at their school, and so the upperclassmen mentor the young kids, and it's been this relationship they've developed for years, 4, 5, 6 years. And when you say that, I kind of hear the same thing, where because we're so used to the transient nature and we're so used to moving around, some of these mentorship opportunities that may arise where people can learn from others, that knows no geography, right? That can move wherever, and those relationships could also move as well, which is a neat thing to develop in our kids as they're, navigating this whole military thing.
Yes, no, I totally agree.
So from if someone had a child who maybe likes to write, or I guess help me understand, what are some of the things you're looking for, and the types of stories and content that you are wanting to include in the magazine as you go forward?
So, just as Legacy Magazine has, powerful narratives, just personal narratives from different spouses, we also are looking for narratives from children of what they experienced, but also stories that kind of make them happy or jokes that make them happy. We're also looking for creative content and activity content where kids can really get into the magazine with, mazes or jokes or
Right.
comics, because I feel like, especially, there's just different outlets that we can take when we're trying to be creative. We're also like drawing, anything that really can push a child out of their comfort zone a little bit, but also help them experience kind of that creative side of themselves.
Absolutely. And share those experiences. That's awesome. Very cool. So if folks had an interest in legacy in particular or in the kids' legacy, what would be the best way for them to find the magazine, be able to contribute? What does all that look like for folks that might be interested in that?
So right now we're housing both Legacy Magazine and Legacy Kids Magazine on one website, so it's easy to navigate for our readers. So that's legacymagazine.org. You can also connect with us on social. For Instagram, it's Legacy Mag, and then for Facebook, it's Legacy Magazine. And we've started curating a community for the Legacy Kids magazine on Instagram specifically, and we've already got quite an exciting community of children posting and sharing. It's
That's
a lot
awesome.
of their parents, of course, sharing their artwork and their writing. We have a writing workshop going on right now that some kids have been posting their work and kind of sharing how they're navigating this pandemic. So I think this is a powerful opportunity to create community, since the community right outside our doors is a little less attainable right now.
Right.
So yeah, any of those outlets. We have submission opportunities posted online. We are accepting submission for Legacy Kids, and that's expected tentatively this summer, the first volume.
Fantastic. No, I'm excited to see that. So one other question I'm curious about before I let you guys go is I was thinking about the fact that if I heard correctly, for neither of you, this was an endeavor for which you had experience to draw from. So I think, as military spouses, sometimes we sort of end up maybe like you looking at an opportunity to do something way outside your comfort zone, but maybe having a little bit of fear associated with that. So I'm curious from both of you, like what would be your best pieces of advice for someone who is, kind of facing that similar point where they have this idea, they have this passion, they really see a possibility, but they're not sure how to take that step. So talk to them for just, Abby, go ahead.
So I would say speak it, right? So if you have something that's on your heart and it almost makes you want to cry and laugh at the same time, because that's kind of what Legacy was for me initially. It was this thing that was like so big and so overwhelming, but so exciting. Speak it. Speak it to a friend, speak it to a spouse, speak it to someone you trust, because that makes it more real. It makes it more tangible. And that also leads to accountability. So when I started sharing this idea with friends, they started asking me about it. So how far have you gotten? How much have you invested into this? And what's the plan? When's the date? So first speak it. Explore all of your curiosities, and then reach out to individuals within that profession. So I spent a good 6 months reaching out to independent publishers and, got some consultation, and that was really helpful because they could share with me the do's and don'ts, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I would say speak it, and then find kind of like your cohort of people that you can brainstorm and mastermind your ideas.
Yeah, I mean, any kind of mentorship I think is so key. Like whether you're doing something you know or don't know, like there's always value in getting perspective from other people for sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Daena, what would you add to that list?
I think that Abby's absolutely correct in just speaking it and saying it out loud. And then from there, I know that you had said, there's fear and excitement associated with those things. And that continues like through for a really long
Right.
time. So work a little bit every single day and work through that fear and excitement and kind of, that change and feeling, because it's not always going to be cupcakes and roses.
Sure.
But it's not always going to be dreadful and fearful. But like, just put a little bit in every single day,
Absolutely.
to kind of, and you'll see little by little your goal, coming to fruition. And it's kind of, it's really cool to look back and see it.
Yeah, no, very, very great advice from two folks who've been down that road. So I do appreciate you sharing that with us. Before we hop off, is there anything else you wanted to make sure folks knew about what you're up to with Legacy, or anything else?
Well, we do have, for Legacy Magazine, we're about to release volume 6. So be sure to look for that. I know it's crazy to think about. Just as Dana was talking about how it's not like the fear goes away or the excitement goes away. It's almost with each new volume, it's like, what? How are we? We're like, oh my goodness. Right. So I would just encourage you to check that out. For those of you that haven't, we'd love to hear what you think.
Absolutely. I'll be sure to put a link so everybody can find that pretty easily. So no worries there. Anything from you, Dana, before we sign off?
No, thank you so much for having us and letting us speak about Legacy Magazine and Legacy Kids Magazine. This is awesome.
Absolutely. I'm happy to have you guys. And it's always great to just get different perspectives on, what it looks like to carve your own path as a military spouse. So I appreciate you guys spending some time with us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.